Good morning, everybody. We are back for the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection 8:50 a.m. hearing. We're a little bit late, and we have a number of bills on the agenda today, and we also have a joint hearing that begins at 11. So we need to wrap up this and then do decision making in time to get onto that next hearing. So we are going to put a time limit on testifiers today. If you can stand on your written testimony, we do have your written testimony. So we appreciate that you submitted it in advance and it has been reviewed. And so we'll do, I think we'll do a 1 minute time limit. Maybe we'll do 1.5 time limit. Yeah. But hopefully everyone can just be brief and summarize and we won't need to cut anyone off. So we will get started. First up on the agenda, we have House Bill 1811. This is making some amendments to our electric vehicle charging system rebate program. And first up to testify is Department of Transportation. In support, next we have Hawaii Public Utilities Commission.
Members of the committee, we stand on our written testimony and available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii State Energy Office. With comments.
Lowen.
Oh, go ahead.
Chair Lowen, I'm here on behalf of Scott Glenn, our Chief Energy Officer, and we stand on our written testimony and will remain for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have City and County of Honolulu, Department of Design and Construction. In support, Hawaiian Electric.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Martin, and committee members. We stand on our written testimony providing comments. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Hawaii Energy.
Good morning, committee members, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Martin. I'm Noreen Rimo with Hawaii Energy. We stand on our written testimony and available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ulupono Initiative. In support.
Hey, good morning, Chair. We'll just stand on our testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Climate Protectors, Hawaii, Ted Bolin. In support. Hawaii EV. In support. 350 Hawaii. In support. Let's see. Hawaii EV Association. In support. Alliance for Automotive Innovation.
Chair, we stand in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Blue Planet Foundation.
Good morning, Chair. We'll stand on our written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Tesla.
Yes, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair Martin. This is Sandy Wong for Tesla. We did submit written testimony, which I will stand on. We are offering 2 amendments. Basically, we think this bill should go a little further. So we would like to do 1 port for upgrades and replacement EV chargers as well. And then we wanted to delete the proposed language on page 8 and page 9 in regarding having at least 2 charging standards for fast charging. But I know it's in my written testimony, so I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Hawaii Auto Dealers Association.
Morning, Chair Lowen. Dave Rolf for the Hawaii Auto Dealers Association. We stand in strong support of the bill. It will help the auto dealers who are installing DC fast chargers. Very much in support of this measure.
Thank you. And then we have Retail Merchants of Hawaii. And then for individuals in support, that's all the people we have listed here to testify. Was there anyone that we missed who signed up in advance? All right, if not members, any questions? If not, we'll move on to House Bill 1936. This is the second version of a bill amending the charging system rebates to add in a fueling station rebate for hydrogen fueling stations. And first up to testify, we have Public Utilities Commission.
And we'll stand on our written testimony offering comments available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Hawaii State Energy Office.
Aloha, Chair. We are in support and we offer one modification. HAO suggests to rename the Hawaii's electric vehicle charging system rebate program to the Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Rebate Program to be consistent with other ASB versions. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Ulupono Initiative.
Morning, Chair. Ulupono will stand on its testimony supporting intent. We have a few additional comments in our testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii EV.
Aloha, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm representing, this is Noel Marin. I'm representing Hawaii EV in this testimony. We are in opposition to HB 1936 for the reasons that we've specified in our written testimony. I'd like to reiterate the key points here. Number one, it creates unnecessary churn in our efforts to accelerate the electrification of transportation. Yes, these vehicles, fuel cell vehicles, have zero tailpipe emissions. However, there's so much energy that is lost in the creation, storage, and use of hydrogen that the system is wasteful compared to existing solutions. It further counters our efforts to maximize energy efficiency. Critically, the fueling stations that we're referring to are very expensive. And for a meaningful rebate, we are likely talking about several $100,000 per station. An obvious concern is that our existing rebate program will need to be expanded significantly if we're to support these without affecting the efforts to expand our public electric car charging infrastructure. Lastly, I personally believe, and the group believes, that hydrogen created with zero emission renewable energy will, without doubt, play an important role in our economy. Ground transportation just isn't a reasonable use case at this time. Thank you for your care for our environment and our planet and this opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next, we have Alliance for Automotive Innovation. Tiffany. Team.
Chair, we stand in our testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii Gas. In support. Barbara Berry. Oh, go ahead, Julie.
Oh, hi, Julie Yunker with Hawaii Gas. We stand our testimony in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have 3 individuals testifying in opposition and 2 in support. That is everyone we have signed up to testify. Was there anyone that I missed?
This is Hawaii Energy. We stand on our written testimony, providing comments available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed you. Members, any questions? I have a few quick questions. Maybe start with Noreen, Hawaii Energy.
Yes.
I guess based on your comments, I think some of the concern was just this program was designed around EV infrastructure and hydrogen infrastructure. It's like apples and oranges. It's a different set of concerns. So even if we want to support hydrogen, do you think it would be better to address that via a different program or to try to fit it into this program?
Our comments are, we're concerned about our budget. As you know, we appreciate that the state legislature was able to find additional funding to continue our EV rebate program, charging station rebate program. However, we feel that a hydrogen station rebate would be a couple $100,000, and that would greatly impact our program, as we are probably looking at an annual rebate budget of around $500,000 to $750,000. So just having 1 or 2 hydrogen rebates could greatly take up most of that budget and leave little else. We do operate on a first come first serve basis, so we are very concerned about the budget. If this were to be a separate budget, that would be another thing to consider.
And do you know offhand, I mean, do you know how many hydrogen vehicles there are in the state right now versus electric vehicles?
I do not know offhand. I'll defer to someone with the Auto Dealership Association.
Okay, I will actually ask that question of the State Energy Office, if you have those numbers.
Yes, Rep. Lowen, there are 37 hydrogen vehicles registered in the state right now.
And how many electric vehicles?
I didn't have that number offhand. However, it's many thousands inordinate times more.
Do you think that the market conditions, like are hydrogen cars and EVs on par right now in terms of the adoption rates, the market conditions, the affordability? Just to ask the question of, is the timing right to try to build out infrastructure of hydrogen fueling stations, or is there sort of a opportunity cost of trying to travel down both paths at once when we see EVs kind of leading the market for adoption as far as the light duty vehicle and passenger cars go?
Yeah, so the Hawaii State Energy Office has been focusing its limited resources on the electrification of transportation because we see that as the best option right now to be able to advance our goals with regard to greenhouse gas emissions reductions and energy. However, we stay open to and think it's very important to allow the market to determine what the different technologies can be to help us meet our goals. And right now it looks like the market is telling us, that they're really investing a great deal in electric vehicles. That said, I think it's important to remain open to all different technologies, and it becomes a question of incentivizing it. At what point are the incentives going to be the tipping point to help expand the market?
All right. I guess maybe for the PUC, just in terms of the understanding you have of the market conditions right now for electric vehicles versus hydrogen vehicles, and then also how that plays into this program. Do you think that the timing is very different, right? The place that hydrogen vehicles are in the market right now is not the same place that electric vehicles are. So this is the development of the program we had made for EVs was sort of based on a set of market conditions of where EVs were at. That made sense to put this money into incentivizing infrastructure because there's enough interest on the private side of putting in the additional amount that it costs to install an EV charging station. But the market conditions currently for hydrogen, I think are quite different. Do you have a comment on that?
Sure. I'm not going to profess to be a transportation expert, but I think if you look at the number of models available and their cost, I think for the vehicles themselves, I think it supports what you're saying. I think in our comments, again, similar to what Noreen said, we're concerned about the high cost of the fueling infrastructure. And so if, without an increase in the overall budget, there would be competition for the funds between EVs and hydrogen. And I think that's what you're trying to put your finger on, correct? That's a concern. We've been trying to support all the different infrastructure, the direction of the legislature, but in this instance, trying to put them both together without an increase, I think would cause competition over those funds.
Okay, thank you. I guess members, any other questions? All right, if not, we'll move on.
I do have the answer, Rep. Lowen, that there are.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to tell you, my staff just told me there's 17,000 EVs right now registered in Hawaii.
Okay, 17,000 EVs and 37 hydrogen.
Yes.
Vehicles. Okay. We're moving on to House Bill 2278. This is our this year's carbon tax bill. Again, we ask you to stand on your testimony if possible. First up, we have Department of Budget and Finance. With comments, Department of Taxation.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members. Josh Michaels, Department of Taxation. We'll stand on our testimony offering comments, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Department of the Attorney General.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Mary Okota for the Attorney General's Office. We submitted written testimony providing comments, briefly stated the tax credit created in this bill may be subject to challenge under the Privileges and Immunities Clause of the U.S. Constitution because it treats residents and non-resident taxpayers differently. We indicated that deleting the term resident on page 11 is one way to address this concern. It was not contained in our written testimony. but there appears to be another reference to residents in the purpose section, section 1, which may also similarly be addressed by replacing the term, quote, Hawaii residents on page 5, line 16, with the term taxpayers. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm available should you have questions.
Thank you. Hawaii State Energy Office.
Aloha, Chair. Hawaii State Energy Office offers comments on HB 2278. We just want to note that pursuant to Act 122, HSCO initiated a carbon pricing study, the results of which indicated a carbon cashback program, such as the refundable tax credit proposed by HB 2278, would support both environmental, economic, and social justice objectives. HSCO notes the study concludes the carbon tax would substantially reduce the consumption of fossil fuels, and that distributing most of the tax revenues to Hawaii's households in the low tax scenario would create a net financial benefit to most of Hawaii's households, with the largest net financial benefit to low-income households.
We do have a time
Yes.
limit.
So we just really appreciate the benefits of the recommended refundable tax credit as an effective means of mitigating the impact of potential increased energy costs, especially to low moderate income households. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii Energy, offering comments. Ulupono Initiative.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Mike Munikata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We'll stand on our written testimony and support, and you have our written testimony, which highlights some of the recommendations made by the Tax Review Commission towards the end of our testimony. So I won't get into it, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I have the Kauai Women's Caucus in support, Faith Action for Community Equity.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Susan Gorman Chang. Aloha, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Martin, and the committee. I'm Susan Gorman Chang. I'm chair of the Environmental Justice Task Force of Faith Action for Community Equity. And as representative of the Environmental Justice Task Force, we stand by our testimony in full support of this bill. And thank you so very much for hearing it today. Mahalo.
Thank you. Nature Conservancy, Hawaii. Anthony Ching in support. Hawaii Climate Action Coalition in support. Practical Policy Institute of Hawaii, Clint Churchill. Go ahead. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Chairman Lowen, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. The Practical Policy Institute was established just 1 month ago to speak for the people. And this bill is a perfect example of comparing possible policies, in this case, let's call it carbon tax, and cost of living. Cost of living is a huge problem in Hawaii. 5 years of consistent out-migration. So to go down the path of adding to the cost of living, relative, on the other hand, to kind of an arbitrary, illusory goal of assuring that, or attempting to assure that the temperature in the year 2100 doesn't go up by more than 2 degrees. So you've got kind of those two things tugging at you. If you understand the science of climate change, you'll see that that goal is not only illusory. By one estimate, there would only be 0.2 of 1 degree if the United States completely eliminated carbon dioxide emissions. So we think this is bad policy. The rest of our testimony I won't get into, but I stand by for questions should you have them.
Thank you. Citizens Climate Lobby.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Noel Morin again here, this time on behalf of Citizens Climate Lobby Hawaii. We are in strong support of this climate policy, one that will effectively reduce emissions and allow us to take care of our people at the same time. The carbon fee and refundable credit proposed in this measure will create a system-wide incentive to reduce the burning of fossil fuel. The expected rise in the fuel prices will incentivize efficiency and shift to less fossil fuel use. This will reduce emissions that are contributing to global warming. By returning revenue to people, we're able to not only adapt to the change, but we're also able to come out ahead as we reduce energy consumption and find ways to increase efficiency. Sorry. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Imua Alliance in support. We have Citizens Climate Lobby Honolulu chapter, Jamin Malpola in support. Honolulu County Republican Party in opposition. Heartland Institute in opposition. Hawaii Interfaith Power and Light. Did we already cover you guys? Okay. Climate Protectors Hawaii in support. PAR Hawaii offering comments. Grassroots Institute of Hawaii comments. Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party in support. Tax Foundation of Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation. We have submitted written comments. I just wanted to highlight also that there is a possible federal preemption issue as to the applicability to jet fuel. And it's sketched out in our testimony. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Henry Curtis, Life of the Land.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. We're struggling with the fourth part of this, a logical approach to this bill. First, residents or taxpayers would pay higher costs and then get money back at the end of the year. And we can understand that, even though if there are a lot of mechanical issues with that. The second is that visitors would pay a fee but not get the money back, and therefore it's like a green fee. The third part, which has been stressed, is there's a net financial benefit. The fourth part is, if there is a net financial benefit, if the economy is growing, how does that reduce greenhouse gas emissions? A growing economy produces more greenhouse gases. So there are various mechanisms that actually reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but we don't see it in this form of this bill. Mahalo.
Thank you. And then we have an additional 23 individual testifiers in support, one with comments and one in opposition. Is there anyone that I missed who signed up in advance to testify?
Yes, Chair, the Hawaii State Energy Office stands on its submitted testimony with comments. And just noting that 23% of the greenhouse gas emissions in Hawaii are from the aviation sector. So we appreciate consideration of this bill.
Okay, if there's no one else to testify, members, any questions?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Chair Lowen. Paul Bernstein, I was a co-author of the two UHERO studies on essentially what this bill is. And Kristen from Hawaii State Energy Office did a wonderful job echoing the benefits of this policy. Be happy to answer any questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no one else here to testify, members, any questions? All right. If not, we will move on to House Bill 1639. This is a specific tax specific to aviation fuel. And first up, we have Attorney General offering comments.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Oh, I'm sorry. Mary Yokota for the Attorney General's Office. We stand on our testimony providing comments, and I'm available should you have any questions. Thank you.
We did just get we did read your testimony, so I appreciate it. Department of Taxation.
Hi again, Chair, Vice Chair, members. Department will stand on its testimony offering comments, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Budget and Finance. Comments. Department of Transportation.
Yes, Madam Chair. The Department of Transportation will stand on our written testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ulupono Initiative in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Micah Munikata on behalf of Ulupono Initiative. We stand on our testimony supporting intent. Just wanted to state that we are supportive of an overall cashback policy, like the one in the previous bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Imua Alliance in support, Environmental Justice Task Force for Faith Action.
Yes, thank you,
Go ahead.
Chair. Again, we stand by our written testimony. We're in full support. Especially happy that there's going to be a refundable tax credit to lower income folks. Mahalo.
Thank you. Climate Protectors Hawaii in support, Tax Foundation of Hawaii with comments.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation. We've submitted written comments similar to the one in the previous bill. There is also a federal preemption issue on this one as well. We do understand that the bill states that the revenue from the new carbon tax is exclusively to be used for airport purposes. However, there is a linked tax credit for the general population, which could be seen as a use of the tax unrelated to airport purposes. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Airlines for America, Sean Williams in opposition. Retail Merchants of Hawaii in opposition. We have 2 additional individuals submitting testimony in support. Is there anyone I missed who signed up in advance to testify? If not, members, questions? I guess I have a quick question for DOT, Department of Transportation.
Yes, ma'am, I'll do my best.
Thanks. My understanding is any tax collected on aviation fuel has to go to landing fees.
Well, Madam Chair, the Department of Transportation is funded through, is a fee-based operation. And according to our testimony, we have to rebate that towards their landing fees. And as a result, it would hurt our budget. But we understand what folks are trying to do, and we're not necessarily adverse to that. But we feel that this would be, detrimental to our budget.
So the landing fees, does that get paid back to airlines, or is the landing fees like what can that money be expended on? Because I think the idea, like there was an understanding that the any tax on aviation fuel has to go back to airports. It can't go, any general fund direction, but can it be expended on like electrification infrastructure at airports or things like that? Or is it more restricted, the allowable uses?
Madam Chair, I'm 2 months in the saddle, and I don't want to speak out of turn in a way where I'm not familiar with. But my understanding is that everything we do at the airport, we have to get the airline's approval because we've taken the money from them through the landing fees. And I believe that the dynamics are that the airline fuel, I think, gets rebated, or I'm out of my depth here.
Okay. Okay, if you can
And I'll
find
have to
out an
get back to
answer
you,
for
ma'am.
us, yeah, and let us know. And then I'll try, I guess, Hawaii State Energy Office, do you know the answer to that question?
I defer to the DOT. I understand that everything has to go back into the airport account, and I'm not sure the details of how it's administered.
Let's see, I'll just keep asking. Department of Taxation, do you guys know the answer to this question?
Chair, excuse me, I apologize. I can't speak to the extreme specific niche of like which accounts it has to go. I am seeing, according to official guidance put out on the Federal Register by the Federal Aviation Administration, the phrase they use is airport-related purposes. And now what that looks like in the extreme specific example by example, that's something we would probably have to defer to the experts on.
Okay.
What is an aviation purpose?
Okay, because I guess the idea is if this funding can help to, can be put back into airports in a way that's helpful.
Right. If it's, I believe as currently written, it would all be designated for 248-8, the aviation fund. But it's without knowing specifically instance by instance, it would be hard for us to make a general statement.
Okay, all right, thank you. Other members, any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. For the tax department.
Hey, good morning, Representative.
Thank you. So can you help me or help explain in the testimony where it says first with respect to the proposed tax credit in section 2, that section of your testimony, and you use the word may violate the U.S. Constitution, and you don't say will or can you explain why may?
Sure. Essentially, we're not in a position to speak for event. Essentially, that would be ultimately, if it is challenged in court by either by the feds or by another state or by the airlines, we can't speak definitively to the outcome based on. But we do know we would have to defer. We would probably defer to the attorney generals for proper argumentation and citing cases. But anytime you treat a state resident differently than a non-state resident, whether it's taxation or anything else, that to us just flags the alarm for there may be a Commerce Clause issue. But we're not necessarily the subject matter experts on that as a whole.
I know you put it in the last bill too, but I just wanted to bring it up once and get the answer from you folks. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. I guess maybe just to follow up on that, I thought the constitutionality concerns, at least for this bill and the previous bill, so this might be a question for Attorney General, was based on use of the word resident as opposed to qualified taxpayer, which is the change we can easily make. Is Attorney General, is that Mary, are you still available to comment on that?
Yes, Chair. In our testimony, our focus was with respect to the privileges and immunities. I'm not quite certain what constitutional provision the Department of Taxation is referring to. If they're referring to the privileges and immunities, then the residency concern would be addressed by the removal of the term and making the credit available to residents and non-residents alike. If they're talking about a different constitutional issue, I'm not quite clear as to what provision that they are mentioning at this time. If I can get the clarification.
I think it's the idea that I thought the question of like federal preemption was addressed by making sure that the funding still stays with the airports, and that the federal law sort of mandated we can't, do a tax like this specific to airlines and then somehow absorb it into general fund or give it back in a dividend or whatever other purposes, that it has to stay with the airports. But I thought that keeping the funding with the airports sort of addressed that concern, and we didn't see that from your guys' testimony. So.
Chair, there is a code section, federal law 49 USCA section 47133, which specifically prohibits the use of local taxes on aviation fuel or the revenues generated by an airport that is the subject of federal assistance may not be expended for any purpose other than capital or operating costs of the airport, the local airport system, or any other local facility that is owned or operated by the person or entity that owns or operates the airport that is directly and substantially related to the air transportation of passengers or property. Our understanding is that under this bill, the fuel, the tax collected on the aviation fuel would be deposited into the airport revenue fund, which we understood would be used for these purposes. If we're not correct in that, it would be something I would need to look into.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Members, any other questions? Okay, if not, next on the agenda is HB 2423 relating to climate mitigation. This is requiring certain requirements regarding carbon, mineralized concrete. And first up to testify, we have Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. Office of Planning and Sustainable Development supports the intent of this bill. We offer some comments and proposed amendments for the consideration by the committee. We note that, concrete can also play an important role in the sustainable development and climate resilience of the state, and in terms of not just carbon sequestration opportunities, but also solar heat blocking pavements, solar roads, as well as permeable pavements. And so we would like to reference those issues of climate resiliency for the committee's consideration. I'm available for any questions. Mahalo.
And then there is City and County of Honolulu, Department of Design and Construction in opposition, CCPI Hawaii in opposition, Our Revolution Hawaii in support.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Dave Mullich, Our Revolution Hawaii. We are standing in strong support. As I said earlier, climate change is a growing problem and it's here now, and we need to do everything we can to sequester carbon. This is a really good step forward. Thank you so much for hearing this, and please support.
Thank you. And then we have additional written testimony from Climate Protectors Hawaii, Kauai Women's Caucus, 350 Hawaii, Hawaii Interfaith Power and Light in support, and then 7 individuals in support. I think that's all the written testimony we had, or people signed up to testify in person. Members, any questions? Okay, if not, we'll move on to House Bill 2090 relating to zero emission transportation. This establishes a rebate for low and moderate income individuals or families purchasing zero emission vehicles. And first up to testify, we have DBET.
The Hawaii State Energy Office. I'm Kirsten Baumgart Turner, Deputy for the office. Chair Lowen, we support HB 2090, an administration bill, which establishes the zero emission transportation rebate program with the PUC to enable low and moderate income families greater access to zero emission vehicles by providing a rebate on the point of sale purchase price of zero emission vehicles. As you know, emissions from ground transportation account for over half of energy emissions. Neighborhoods with higher percentages of LMI households generally have a significantly lower adoption rate of EVs as a percentage of total vehicles in that neighborhood. This is telling when considering where Hawaii currently stands on the equitable transition to a decarbonized ground transportation sector. For Hawaii to achieve its goal of a net negative carbon economy as soon as practicable, but no later than 2045, it's essential that everyone is afforded the opportunity to participate in the net negative carbon economy from an equity, economic, and technical perspective. HSEO defers to the appropriate agency for comment on the administration of this program addition. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Hawaii Public Utilities Commission.
Thank you, Chair. We stand on our written testimony and support, available for any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. I have Hawaii State Energy Office here, but I think same testimony.
Yes, I apologize. I'm also offering testimony on behalf of the director of DBED, and so we stand on support.
Thank you. Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Department of Transportation supports HB 2090, and we stand on a written testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hawaiian Electric, Junchi, in support.
Thank you.
Hawaii Energy, in support or offering comments. Life of the Land, Henry Curtis, in support. Climate Protectors Hawaii, in support. Ulupono Initiative.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Mike Munikata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We sent on our written testimony in support of this bill. Just want to point out that if this bill is intending to create a genuine point of sale rebate, that there might need some adjustments to it, as we don't see it currently as a point of sale rebate. So rather than prescribe some of these details, we recommend the legislature simply state the administrator implement a true point of sale rebate program. We also recommend adding e-bikes to this bill if possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have Kauai Women's Caucus, in support. 350 Hawaii in support, Our Revolution Hawaii.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair and Committee. Yeah, we stand in strong support. Less than 2% of our vehicles in Hawaii are electric vehicles, and we need to change over to 100% rather quickly because climate change is stopping at our doorstep right now and banging on it. So anyway, we full support, and anything we can do to expand and help electric vehicles would be a great move forward. Mahalo.
Thank you. And then we have Hawaii EV Association in support, Alliance for Automotive Innovation, Tiffany Yajima.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Tiffany Yajima for the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. I will stand in our testimony in support of this measure as it would encourage the uptake of passenger electric vehicles in the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii Auto Dealers Association, Dave Rolf.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. I'm David Rolf with the Hawaii Auto Dealers Association. The dealers stand in support of the intent of this bill, but we have serious concerns about several provisions in it. In fact, so many that we just chose two just to begin with because they were such serious concerns. The first is that it changes the definition of motor vehicle dealer. It adds a new definition called a vehicle dealer, and then doesn't really define what would be the role of a vehicle dealer as opposed to a motor vehicle dealer. And it seems to almost circumvent all the franchise laws that are in place to protect customers that have been in place for so many decades. Our role as a trade association is to help auto dealers comply with the laws to make car buying and servicing trouble-free. One of the costs has been one of the difficulties for people of low and moderate income. And we understand buying electric vehicles has been difficult. As the Alliance pointed out earlier, it costs about $12,000 more to buy an electric vehicle right now. Many people don't have the charging stations. It just wasn't a time when people in certain income categories were purchasing those vehicles. But to try to change that situation with a bill that authorizes an administrator to determine what kind of vehicle, how much money, who will qualify for it, and not specify what that is, and then further go into providing that administrator and all the authority to sell all these different products that relate to automotive. We have an entire licensing system in place to protect consumers. In one case, it was pointed out, if you wanted to buy a used vehicle, it would be possible for you to get a rebate, go out of state, buy the used vehicle and bring it in, and there would be no tax paid on the on that.
Summarize, sorry, we do have a time limit in place, but
Thank you. Then
summarize.
we'll stand in support of the intent, but opposed to many provisions in the bill and deeply concerned.
Thank you. Where was I? And the only other person is Matt Geyer that we have signed up to testify in person.
Aloha, Chair Lowen. Thank you for supporting this bill and hearing this bill, and I hope for your support for it. Low-income families have not been able to take advantage of electric vehicles in the same way. As David Rolf mentioned, they can be more expensive in charging infrastructure. So we definitely need to find a way because once they get an electric vehicle, they're going to enjoy the lower maintenance and the lower operating costs that electric vehicles have. So it's a win-win for them. And it's a win for our environment. So thank you for hearing. And also in the previous three measures, I just wanted to express my thanks for your support and for hearing 2278 especially. Thank you.
All right. And then thank you. Then we also have written testimony submitted in support from Hawaii EV, and then 12 other individuals in support and 1 in opposition. Members, any questions? All right, well, actually, I'll ask a quick question. I think maybe for Kirsten. In response to the concerns raised by Dave Rolf about the administrator, I think this bill is written so what that's actually referring to is the public benefits the administrator, or is that not correct?
Yes, however, I just want to add that we're ready and willing to work with the Hawaii Auto Dealers
Well, can you
Association
just
to remedy.
explain what's in the bill though?
Yes.
So it's contracting with the public benefits fee administrator. So it's not like a mystery administrator.
Correct.
Okay. All right, we'll move on if no one has further questions. House Bill 804. First up, we have Attorney General with comments.
Good morning, Lyle Leonard here for the Attorney General's office. We've submitted comments on a possible preemption issue and nothing further to add beyond the written testimony, but if available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii State Energy Office with comments.
Yes, Chair, we stand on our testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Motor Vehicle Industry Licensing Board.
Morning, Chair and Vice Chair Martin and members of the committee. My name is Jenny Yam, Executive Officer of the Motor Vehicle Industry Licensing Board. The board will stand on its written testimony providing comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Blue Planet Foundation written testimony submitted in support.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. We'll stand on our written testimony in support.
Thank you. We had Life of the Land testimony in support. Surfrider Foundation in support. Imua Alliance in support. Hawaii EV with comments. 350 Hawaii in support. Hawaii EV Association with comments. Pacific Biodiesel Technologies. Joy Galatro in support, and Pacific Biodiesel Technologies Kelly King with comments. We have Motorcycle Industry Council in opposition, Climate Protectors Hawaii in support, Hawaii Auto Dealers Association. You did sign up to testify in person, so go ahead. Dave Rolf, you're
Thank
up.
you, Chair and Vice Chair. The Hawaii Auto Dealers Association is opposed to this bill. It seeks to ban the sale of vehicles that are fueled solely by fossil fuel in 2035. That's problematic in that there's 17 major manufacturers, and it makes no provision for those that are smaller manufacturers or medium-sized manufacturers, as other states which have looked at similar measures like this. Also, if you look at California's and New Jersey's and other states like that, they don't use a blunt instrument that simply cuts off the sale of a certain type of vehicle. They turn it over to a certain agency or department, and there's all sorts of credits involved, and there's a huge amount of stakeholder work. And this bill would do things and try to attempt to do it with a very blunt instrument. Again, of those 17 manufacturers that are selling in this market, there are 7 that have plans to be all electric or all renewable fuel by 2035. But there are 10 that still would have many vehicles that would be offered for sale in Hawaii that would be prohibited. That's something that no state has done. Other states have explored that area, but with a great deal of stakeholder involvement and usually agencies involved. So we'd ask that you defer this bill.
Thank you. And then we have Alliance for Automotive Innovation, Tiffany Yajima.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tiffany Yajima on behalf of the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. The auto innovators are opposed to this measure and have concerns in that it is a sales ban, but doesn't include any government support for zero emission vehicles. We do believe that governments need to step up in the transition to cleaner transportation by offering incentives such as broader charging infrastructure that support both EVs and hydrogen vehicles, vehicle purchase incentives such as rebates, and updates to the building code for daytime charging at apartments, incentives like those. We are concerned with this measure, and we note that it just doesn't lay out the comprehensive plan that's needed to achieve the broader goal of increasing ZEVs on our roads. So we will stand on the rest of our written testimony, and thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And then there are 11 additional individuals with testimony and support and 2 in opposition, and we did have a couple sign up to be here in person. Is Carolyn Eaton here?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, members of the committee. I only want to underscore a concern I have with the number of years provided by the drafters for the smooth, equitable transition in the process. As time passes, we'll all learn whether this timeline represents the urgency required for our island's well-being and that of lower-lying island communities, for our well-being is tied to theirs. Please pass this measure and advocate for its becoming law this session. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Natalie Iwasa had also signed up to be here in person.
Thank
Natalie, are
you,
you
Chair.
there?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Natalie Wassa for the record. I oppose this. I did send written testimony, but it was very late last night and I'd like to add a few additional comments. There are three concerns I have. Basically, disposal of batteries still isn't really ready for a huge influx of electrical batteries. And we've seen with the city how they have had problems with their recyclables and China has turned them back. So I'm concerned that that market is not yet ready. There's a problem and big concern, I think, with the production of lithium ion batteries. And I outlined a couple things in my testimony regarding that. There is transition and a lot of technology in place with respect to battery production, but there are still some major concerns and whether that technology will be on board and those concerns mitigated by 10 years from now, that's a huge question. So basically, you know, we have to ask ourselves, are we trading one problem for another? And what is the sacrifice or sacrifices that we are willing to give up in order to create this societal good that we are looking at? So I ask you not to rush into this and defer this. I also had one source of reference that your members might be interested in, and that is the Wendover Productions. They had a short video, it's about 17 minutes. I didn't include it in my testimony because I haven't fully vetted that organization, but they do seem to provide a balanced outlook on the EV battery production. So thank you for allowing me to testify this morning.
Thank you. That is everyone we have signed up to testify. Members, any questions? All right, if not, we'll move on to House Bill 2054. This is authorizing HTDC to reestablish matching grants for alternative energy research. First up, we have Department of Budget and Finance with comments. Hawaii State Energy Office.
Chair, Hawaii State Energy Office stands on its testimony and support. Mahalo.
Thank you. HTDC, Len Higashi.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Len Higashi, Hawaii Technology Development Corporation. We stand in support of this bill with comments that the revolving fund is problematic, and so we request it be appropriated and expended through the general fund. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have Hawaii Gas.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Jill Yunker from Hawaii Gas in support of HB 2054. Hawaii Gas supports incentives and funding that can be deployed and directed to help accelerate innovative solutions that creates more options and opportunities to create renewable fuels and bioenergy. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And then Mackay Ocean Engineering. In support.
Hello, Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
This is Greg Rochel with Mackay. I was just going to say we stand on our written testimony. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we have Oceanit Laboratories with testimony and support. I don't think they're here. Ann Chung in support. And Herman Kugler.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Herman. I stand on my testimony and support.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who signed up to testify that we missed? If not, members, any questions? All right, no questions. We will move on to the next bill on the agenda, House Bill 2388 relating to environmental impact statements. First up, we have Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Good morning, Chair. OPSD, which includes the renamed Environmental Review Program, stands on the submitted testimony. I am available for any questions.
Thank you. Department of Budget and Finance with comments. And then 4 additional testifiers in support. Is there anyone we missed who signed up to testify? If not, members, any questions? All right, if not, we will move on. House Bill 1519 relating to sunscreen. First up, we have Department of Health offering comments.
Good morning, Chair Lowen and members of the committee. Diana Felton, toxicologist, Hawaii Department of Health. We stand in on our written testimony with comments and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then DLNR.
Aloha, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Martin, members of the committee, Brian Nielsen, Administrator, Division of Aquatic Resources. We stand on our written testimony, appreciating the intent of the bill and offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we had David Sakota also signed up. DLNR, that might be the same. Let's see, we have Lynn Murakami Akatsuka in opposition. Americans for Democratic Action. Support. Kohala Center. Cindy Kunihali in support. Malama.
Hello.
Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
Hello, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the Energy and Environmental Protection Committee. My name is Cindy Punihauli, and I'm the Director of the Kahala Education Center, program of the Kohala Center. I stand by my written testimony and in strong support of HB 1519 with amendments to preserve the state law to ban oxybenzone and octinoxate. We ask that you pass HB 1519 with amendments and to apply the precautionary principle, which asserts the burden of proof for potentially harmful actions by industry or government rests on the assurance of safety, and that when there are threats of serious damage, scientific uncertainty must be resolved in favor of prevention, allowing us to protect our environment and communities, future generations. Mahalo.
Thank you. And then Malama Pupukea Waimea, Jenny Dagodich in support. Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition stands on its written testimony, except to say that this bill does need to be amended to restore the oxybenzone octinoxate ban law passed in 2018, which the draft removes. And there's some language in my testimony, in HYROC's testimony, that makes that clear. And I'm available for any questions. I would just note that the Senate yesterday passed a bill similar to the language changes that HYROC is proposing, and we'd urge this committee to do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Friends of Hanauma Bay, Lisa Bishop.
Yes, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair Martin, and members of this committee. Friends of Hanauma Bay stands in solidarity and support with Cindy Punihaole from the Kahalu Bay Education Center, Malama Pupukea Waimea, and the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition in supporting House Bill 1519 only if it is amended so that it supplements and does not supplant Act 104/2018, which banned the sale of oxybenzone and octinoxate in the state of Hawaii. Mahalo very much for your leadership on this issue, and we look forward to seeing this bill passed with amendments. Mahalo.
Thank you. Then we have Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party, Alan Burdick in support. Surfrider Foundation, Hawaii in support. Climate Protectors, Hawaii in support. American Academy of Dermatology. Signed up to be here in person.
Yeah, Dr. George Martin representing the Academy of Dermatology. I stand on the Academy's statement and my own personal statement, and I want to thank the committee. I will interject something very important. The committee needs to wait until definitive science from the National Academy of Science Subcommittee on Sunscreen Safety presents its results in April of this year. That guidance, the scientific guidance provided by that committee, will assess the effect of sunscreens, all of them, on our reefs and oceans and aquatic environment. More importantly, we'll also assess the impact, if you withdraw them, on causing skin cancer and death. So that's number one. And number two, the FDA will weigh in on a monograph on the safety of sunscreens in general. Both of these monographs will be published in April. What I'm hearing is that the well-intended people of Hawaii, including myself, are getting ahead of the science and wanting to ban these things before the actual science is presented. We do know that current science indicates, and if you talk to Dr. Coley Rogers, principal investigator at the Marine Biology Coral Reef Ecology Lab, she is not in favor of this. And I would suggest that the committee reach out and talk to her. I think you're ahead of yourselves. Let's wait until the science comes through and make an informed, intellectual, and scientific statement with the evolution of this bill. But don't pass it now. Wait until the science comes in. That's our only request to the Academy of Dermatology.
Thank you. Then we have Hawaii Food Industry Association.
Thank you, Chair. Lauren Zerbal on behalf of Hawaii Food Industry Association. We will stand on our testimony in opposition to this measure, and just note that on the FDA website, it does state that given the recognized public health benefits of sunscreen use, Americans should continue to use broad spectrum SPF with all of these ingredients that are currently allowed to be used. So the FDA has not come out in opposition to any of these ingredients. And we would agree with the previous testifier that the legislature should wait until the final determination is made before banning any additional products, and will be available for questions if there are any. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And then we have just written testimony from Consumer Healthcare Products Association in opposition, Retail Merchants of Hawaii in opposition. And then let's see, signed up to testify in person, we have Joe DiNardo. Are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can
There
hear
we
you. Go
go.
ahead.
Hi. Okay, thank you. I would like to thank you and Vice Chair and all the EEP very much for taking the time to hear this bill. I strongly stand in favor of this bill, and I stand on my testimonies. I would like to add two things. If we're way ahead of the science, that basically means to me that industry, the medical professionals, and the sunscreen and the government are way behind in the science. The science started in 2001 and has been consistent over the last 20 years, which is why FDA put out this announcement. And the only last statement I have to pretty much mention is just a simple phrase: don't look up. And if you haven't seen that movie, I suggest you have. It's a perfect situation of what industry has been trying to do and has been doing for the last 100 years with chemical sensitivity. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we also had Kelly King signed up to testify in person. Kelly, are you here? Not here. We had Kelly Lundgren. Are you here?
I am here. Okay. Hi, my name is Kelly Lundgren, and I am a resident of Maui and a volunteer at Ahihi Kina'u Natural Reserve. For one, I want to thank you for bringing this bill to this House and Senate. It's a good intention bill. Just 2 points of argument on it. And one of them is you're using an FDA designation that is it's not a designation that is used in environmental situations. It's used for how does it affect people. We know that these 14 petrochemicals, there is science that say they endanger the reef. So I would recommend that you use something other than an FDA designation. And if you don't use it, if you want to take this bill and modify it, I would say there's a danger in saying not generally recognized by the FDA, because there's a designation that says non-grace, and does not grace mean non-grace. And then if it does truly mean that, then all these 14 petrochemicals that are being studied are not currently labeled that, and they may still be able to be used. So what I would recommend is to change the language, instead of prohibit not, but say permit only FDA designated grays, or generally recognized as safe and effective by the FDA. as the only permitted sunscreen active ingredients. And that makes it a much stronger bill. The science is out there that says these 14 petrochemicals do endanger our reefs. We have thousands of visitors that go in the reef every day. Minerals work. They are grays. They are safe and effective according to the FDA. I have mineral on my face right now. It works. I've been using it for 5 years. Many visitors appreciate it. I really feel like if you can strengthen this bill, it will stick. And within 90 days of its enforcement, our reefs will feel relief. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. And then I think we had a Lynn Miyahara individual who signed up to be here in person. Lynn, are you here? Go ahead.
Yes, Chair, thank you. My name is Lynn and I'm representing the Public Access to Sunscreens Coalition. And we stand on our written testimony in opposition, but I also want to make it abundantly clear that the FDA's recent final order did not recommend any changes to currently marketed sunscreens. Otherwise, you would have seen an entire nation, like everybody would have had to stop using all the sunscreens. So the sunscreens that this bill is attempting to ban are still considered safe and effective by the FDA. I also want to point out that more and more coral reef scientists are questioning the science behind the sunscreen bans. For example, our own Tue Rogers, the principal investigator at the UH Coral Reef Ecology Lab, was asked by the Star Advertiser recently about a sunscreen threat at Hanauma Bay. In an article on November 20th, she was quoted saying, "There is no strong evidence to state that sunscreens threaten coral reefs." And she goes on to say, "Our Coral Reef Ecology Lab has not seen the effects of sunscreen use on bleaching in our monitoring efforts. If there were effects from sunscreen, it would be evident." And Dr. Rogers and her team are well known, and they've been studying Hanauma Bay for 20 years plus, right? And so we can be sure that if sunscreen was a major threat to coral reefs, we would have seen it in an enclosed area like that, like way more than all the other areas that we're also seeing coral reef damage where there are very few people. So again, this bill is premature, and we're asked that the risk of severely restricting sunscreen options in Hawaii outweighs the potential benefits. And we ask that the legislature hold on this bill until more data can be on both the environmental and the public health impacts are available. So thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And then we have additional testifiers, individuals, both in support and opposition and with comments. Is there anyone who signed up to testify in person that we missed? If not, members, any questions? Rep. Tokioka, you're muted. Did you have a question? You can go ahead, but you have to unmute yourself.
I'm trying there. Okay.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Dr. Martin, please.
Yes, I'm right here.
Dr. Martin, you're an interesting guy because you're a doctor. You're not hired by any of the sunscreen companies, are you?
No, I'm not hired by any of the sunscreen companies. I represent the Academy of Dermatology and the Hawaii Dermatology Association.
So this is when the medical world clashes with the scientific world on some of this stuff.
No, actually it's not, sir. It is not clashing. The National Academy of Science monograph will tell us two things. What is the effect of sunscreens on aquatic environment, i.e. reef? And number two, if we take the sunscreens away, will it kill people who depend on those sunscreens for sun protection? That monograph should be out in April or May of this year, a simple 2 to 3 months from now. And once that's out, we are all going to study it and make recommendations. And maybe some of these sunscreens we currently use will disappear. But let's wait for that data. And by the way, if we blanket, remove all these sunscreens and people die of melanoma because they stopped wearing the sunscreen that they liked, the blood's on our hands. That's the critical thing. And we're so quick to jump to conclusions that these sunscreens are dangerous to our reefs. And yet, if you look at the science that I provided to you, it completely says that there is no evidence to date that if the concentrations found in our oceans around our reef are toxic. I repeat, not at the concentrations found even in Hanauma Bay.
Okay, so that was going to be my second question. I didn't finish my first question, but so you said between April and May is when this study is coming out?
Yes, the National Academy of Science, and they made sure that the two members from the Academy of Dermatology who are on that committee have no conflict with interest. It's purely scientific. Let's wait for the evidence.
And specifically addressing the coral reef issue, is that part of the?
all aquatic environment, coral reefs, streams, and this is very important because we have lakes and streams where these people wearing sunscreens go swimming, and what impact does it have on those aquatic environments? So they were very broad, but they're really focusing on coral reefs in particular, and the science attack.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just a few follow-ups, I guess. Brian Nielsen, DLNR. Just a quick question. Just based on your understanding, is there evidence out there in scientific studies that show that some of these chemicals do affect the reef?
Yeah, I think it's really challenging to run an experiment out on the reef where you're actually measuring impacts of sunscreen chemicals on the coral reefs in their environment. So most of the studies have been done in a lab, but then complemented by water testing out in the field and detecting contaminant levels in the environment that were comparable to impacts in the lab setting. So I think that's where some of the criticism about how big of an impact are these chemicals on the reef comes from, just because it is really challenging to study. But there have been a number of studies that have done that water testing and have found comparable levels of sunscreen contaminants in the water that have been shown in a lab to be impactful to corals. So yeah, there is evidence. Yes, it would be great to do some of those studies in situ, but it's super challenging. Yeah.
Thank you. And I guess just to have a different perspective, Joe DiNardo, are you still there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
So no, we're just hearing this sort of incendiary statement that people are going to die, and I guess, is that, in your opinion? I mean, it's like we do have alternative mineral sunscreens that I think have been well proven to work just as well. Is the concern that people won't use them as much, and how much evidence is there out there that our current sunscreen, like the link of our current use of sunscreens to melanomas that are deadly? I mean, what's your understanding of this?
Well, actually, the data that I have, which comes from the American Cancer Society and the World Health Organization, simply put it, that about 450,000 people, at least in the United States, have died since 1975 of skin cancers. So, this is a $10 billion industry who over the last 40 years has been using and telling people to use these compounds no matter where they go. So will people die? Yes, people are already dying, and people have been dying for the last 40 some odd years of skin cancers, because these products simply do not protect against skin cancer. It's as very simple as that. The industry loves to put out this phrase of definitive proof. There is zero definitive proof that sunscreens do anything other than harm the environment and harm individuals. As a physician, if somebody's a physician and all you keep doing is cutting out more skin cancers, more skin cancers, more skin cancers every year, then you have to be questioning, what are we doing? Why is not skin cancer disappearing? Okay, so that's really, really important. But zinc oxide and titanium dioxide are extremely effective and do protect, and at least zinc does, across the spectrum, which is important. And it's just really important to understand that, we need to deal with sun avoidance and appropriate protection from the sun. And until industry develops products that can be used and show that they're safe and effective, like FDA is asking, that's the definitive point. Not 2 months from now or 3 months from now, when any one committee, by the way, the NAS has not tested anything. NAS is just reviewing data, okay? And the one question in the coral is, you have one person who's paid by industry, who writes publications for industry, who says that there's no effect, that concentrations aren't there. But in reality, there are 9 other scientists from all over the world who have been showing and demonstrating that not only is these materials in the aquatic environment at relative concentrations that can harm things, but they're just toxic, period, to all kinds of aquatic life, not just coral, it's the whole reef. So that's my take on it. Yes, Dr. Martin is correct. People will die, but people have been dying, and sunscreens have nothing to do with saving them.
And then
Thank you.
just to clarify, I think there was a testifier who said something about the chemicals this bill is trying to ban. I forget what it was, but it seemed like there was some misunderstanding, like just about what the grace list is. So currently, the bill currently would not be banning any additional chemicals. It's if we make the amendment to retain the current prohibition on oxybenzone and octinoxate, and then say in the future, only things approved on the grace list should be acceptable, then if there are additional chemicals added to the grace list that have been, vetted at this higher level to be shown to be safe and effective, then those would actually still be acceptable to be used. So we're not eliminating anything additional.
Correct.
Madam Chairwoman, may I
No, I'm
interject?
sorry. You know what? We don't have back and forth. You had your opportunity. So we're gonna, if there's not any further questions, members, we're gonna move on to the last bill on our agenda that we're taking testimony on. That's House Bill 2493, relating to carbon sequestration incentives. First up to testify, we have Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. The authority stands on its written testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you. We have DLNR.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and Committee. This is DLNR, and we stand on our testimony and support. Mahalo.
Thank you. Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Aloha, Chair. The Office of Planning supports the intent of HB 243 for the past 5 years. OPSD has been researching and publishing materials working on carbon sequestration incentives. As one of the state's 2 climate-related boards and commissions, the state's Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force is a 19-member state task force attached to the OPSD, which includes experts from the forestry, agricultural, land use, environmental, academic, and soil science communities. Since 2018, with only one sole appropriation of $150,000 of funding, the Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force and the OPSD have published 4 documents in relation to carbon sequestration initiatives, including the creation of a pilot project, which this program is modeled after, a desktop analysis for carbon storage, baseline and benchmarks analysis, as well as the feasibility of carbon offsetting, which strongly recommended the establishment of a sequestration initiative program such as this bill to subsidize greenhouse gas and carbon sequestration efforts as an alternative to carbon offsetting. OPSD has a strong and long record supporting greenhouse gas sequestration despite these funding challenges and lack of staff support. And so in an effort to not duplicate roles and responsibilities between state agencies and state boards and commissions, and we suggest that the reviewing committee, as proposed in page 7 of this bill, could be conducted by the State Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force. In addition, we further suggest that this language of this bill be inserted and replace the language in HRS 225P-6, since the OPSD has previously recommended against state-administered carbon offsetting. Finally, given the intense land use planning and land management described in this bill, the OPSD strongly recommends that the legislature consider OPSD as the coordinating agency of the proposed Hawaii Farmland and Forest Soil Health Carbon Smart Incentives Program. We thank you for this opportunity to testify, and I'm available for any questions. Mahalo.
Next up, thank you. Next up, we have Department of Agriculture.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Early I'm here for the Department of Agriculture, standing on its written testimony, offering comments. I'll be here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have additional separate testimony from Department of Agriculture. Was there someone else here from Department of Agriculture? I think that covered it. And then we have Nature Conservancy in support, Hawaii Cattlemen's Council in support, Life of the Land in support, Hawaii Women's Caucus in support, 350 Hawaii in support, Our Revolution Hawaii, Dave Molinex, go ahead.
Yes, we stand in support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hawaii Gas in support.
Yes,
Climate
good
Protect-
morning,
go ahead.
Julie Yunker from Hawaii Gas in support of HB 2493. By incentivizing farmers and various projects, including the growth of biocrops, the state makes it possible to bring more renewable fuel options to meet our goal of carbon neutrality. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Climate Protectors Hawaii in support. We have Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party in support. Dibs Hawaii, Keone Ford in support, who did sign up to testify in person. Is he here? All right, if not, we have Ohana Hui Ventures in support. Art Farm in support, Eco for Life in support, and then quite a lot of additional, looks like 22 individuals in addition submitted testimony and support and one offering comments. Is there anyone I missed who is here to testify in person on this? If not, members, any questions? I guess I have a few quick questions. Start with Gwen from HDIA.
Yes, Chair.
Hi, I always appreciate your willingness to be cheerful about taking on anything additional that we throw at you with legislation, but I'm just curious on this. I mean, this HCIA fundamentally takes on the financing piece, so you could help to distribute rebates, etc. But looking at the bill now as it's set up, there's no, it just would fall completely on HDIA to implement this program, including figuring out who should qualify, if they're following up, what kind of oversight there is, what kind of farming practices they should undertake, or forestry practices. I mean, is HDIA equipped to do that work?
No, we would rely on the technical expertise of DLNR and Department of Ag. So without them, we wouldn't be able to, really we're looking at taking on the fiscal responsibilities. But as far as the technical side, we would need to rely on those other agencies.
Okay. Do you think the bill, the way it's written now, like provides adequate support on that regard?
I thought it did, in that it states that both the DLNR and Department of Ag will assist on the technical side. If you feel it needs to be strengthened, would certainly appreciate that. Because as you know, we do financing. We can do the fiscal side, but certainly not the technical side. Thanks.
Okay, and then I guess then same question for DLNR and agriculture. I mean, how do you see this functioning in reality? We're looking at giving taxpayer dollars out to people. We just want to make sure that we understand what we're asking them to do, how you're quantifying the impact of it, and how you're following up to ensure they're doing what they're doing in a time frame that sort of preserves those positive impacts in carbon sequestration. Is that something you're equipped to sort of be able to guarantee over without additional resources?
Aloha, Chair. This is Leah Laramie from DLNR. I think the bill provisions additional positions for both DLNR and Department of Ag, as well as 4 additional positions at HDIA. Those positions are actually for technical assistance with the folks that would be implementing these practices, including collecting data to measure the efficiency of the programs that are implemented, such as taking soil samples to measure the soil health of the areas where the practices are implemented. So if all of those positions are provided, then yes, absolutely, we'll be able to provide the assistance.
Okay, and then same question for Department of Ag.
Thank you, Chair. Earl Yamamoto, Department of Agriculture. In looking at what is being provided to us in that appropriation for one position, it appears that one position is dedicated to each HGIA to provide technical and research assistance to the program. That provides the person, but in terms of the expertise, the studies and so forth that was brought up by Danielle Bass of the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. This measure doesn't contain any of that kind of stuff. It doesn't reflect that kind of information and data necessary to put together, I would think, a program that would be effective, that would meet the purpose and intent of this bill. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I don't have any further questions. Other members, did you have any questions? Okay, if not, we will recess for decision making and we'll be back.
Chair, are you talking?
Yes. Is the mic on? Okay.
Now it is.
Okay, I'll start over. So first up, we have House Bill 1811. We're going to adopt the amendment suggested by PUC for page 5 and 6, allow the rebates to be up to the specified amount, so we'll add the up to language. We will add the single port upgrade per Tesla's testimony. And then on the bottom of page 8, subsection 4, we'll replace that language in subsection 4 to read electric vehicle charging system rebates should support accessibility of charging to as many electric vehicle drivers as possible. And then we will defect the date and move this forward. Members, any comments? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Chair recommends passing HB 1811 with amendments. Chair, Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Hashem.
Aye.
Representative Matayoshi.
Aye.
Representative Caruso.
Aye.
Representative Todd.
Aye.
Representative Tokioka.
Aye.
Representative Matsumoto. Aye. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. For House Bill 1936, we're going to defer this, noting that, you know, if we do incentives for hydrogen, I'm definitely not opposed to that, but we should establish a separate program and not try to piggyback off this one that was designed around the EV infrastructure. You know, we should consider the separate conditions, market conditions, and amount of funding that would be needed for hydrogen incentives separately. So we'll defer this at this time. House Bill 2278, this is the carbon cashback bill. We're going to clarify the definition of qualifying child per DOTAX testimony. We will replace the word resident with qualified taxpayer per the AG testimony. And we will defect the date to July 1st, 2100 to encourage further discussion and move this forward. Members, any comments? All right, if not, please take the vote.
Chair recommends passing HB 2278 with amendments. Seeing all members are present, are there any noes or reservations? Hearing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
All right, and then House Bill 1639, I think we still had some unanswered questions about the constitutionality of this and the federal preemption, and also what kind of flexibility we would have on how those funds could be expended within the airport system. So we're gonna defer this at this time. We can come back to look at it again in some future date, but still more work to do on that. House Bill 2423, this is the climate change mitigation, looking at the carbon mineralized concrete requirements. So for this bill, instead of housing this in chapter 103, we'll create new sections in chapters 107 and 264 respectively, and direct that for state buildings and state highways projects. These projects should seek to use building and construction materials that reduce the carbon footprint of the project where feasible and cost effective. And then we will defect the date to July 1st, 2100 and move this forward. Members, any comments? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The Chair recommends passing HB 2423 with amendments. I'm seeing all members are present. Are there any noes or reservations? Hearing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thanks. For HB 2090, this is the zero emission vehicle rebate program. We're going to make technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style, and defect the date to July 1st, 2100. And that is all. Members. Any comments? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Chair recommends passing HB 2090 with amendments. Seeing all members are present, are there any noes or reservations? Hearing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And for House Bill 804, based on the Attorney General testimony, for this, we're going to defer this at this time. House Bill 2054, these are looking at reinstating the Naval Research Grant Program. We're going to take the suggested amendment from Budget and Finance where there was a error in the name. I think it was referring to the high tech instead of Hawaii tech or vice versa. We're going to take HTDC's recommended amendment to move this from being in the revolving fund to general funded and for the appropriation. And then we'll make some technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style and affect the date to July 1st, 2100. And that is all. Members, any comments? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Chair recommends passing HB 2054 with amendments. Seeing all members are present, are there any noes or reservations? Hearing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
And thank you. House Bill 2388. This is environmental impact statement and updating the website. We're going to make some technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. We're going to change the expending agency so that this will be under OPSD and not DOH, where the program was moved to last year. And then we'll defect the date to July 1st, 2100. And that is all. Members, any comments? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Chair recommends passing HB 2388 with amendments. Seeing all members are present, are there any noes or reservations? Hearing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. And then House Bill 1519 relating to sunscreen. We're going to make some amendments. So we will retain the prohibition that's currently in statute on oxybenzone and octinoxate and remove that strike through. And then we'll defect the date to encourage further discussion to July 1st, 2100 and move this forward. Members, any comments? If not, Vice Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I understand the concept behind this bill, but I am a little concerned about the Department of Health's testimony and the testimony from a lot of dermatologists, some of which have reached out to me as well. I think sunscreen is just very, very important, and restricting it like such may have some unintended health consequences. So with that, I'll be voting with reservations.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Chair. Yeah, Chair, respectfully, I'm going to be voting no for the same reasons as the previous representative spoke about. I think we passed good legislation recently, and maybe we should wait a little while till we get more information on the science of the impacts to the reef with this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. No one else? Okay, thank you. So Vice Chair, go ahead and take the vote.
Chair recommends passing HB 1519 with amendments. Representative Matsuyoshi and Representative Matsumoto vote with reservations. Representative Tokioka votes no. Are there any additional noes or reservations? I'm hearing none. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thanks. And then House Bill 2493. This is the Carbon Smart Incentives Program. We are going to make some technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. Defect the date to July 1st, 2100 and move this forward. Members, any comments? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Chair recommends passing HB 2493 with amendments. Seeing all members are present, are there any noes or reservations? Hearing none, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
All right, and finally, we have House Bill 1646. This was relating to labeling for truth and labeling for recyclables and composting. We had deferred decision-making on this to see if we could work out some of the concerns, but I think it will take a little more time. So we're gonna go ahead and defer this and maybe come back to it next year. And thank you everyone for helping us get through a long agenda. Quickly, we have about a 10-minute break for EEP members, and then we'll back for a joint with health. So thank you, we're adjourned.